We've talked tonight about media bias, but what about you, the audience? Are you biased? I don't mean you specifically since you watch our show. You're brilliant, open-minded news consumers. I'm talking generally about the audience that watches news. Bernie Goldberg's book, Bias, was a huge bestseller. He went public about the disgusting bias in network news. But tonight, Bernie, you want to talk about audience bias?
Yeah, we live in a polarized media culture. Is there bias in the news? Yes. Is it mainly liberal bias? Absolutely. But there's also bias on the part of the people watching, on the part of the viewers. More and more, I think, people who watch news and opinion want to get their own biases or opinions or views, however you want to describe it. They want to get them validated. So I think liberals tend to watch liberal shows where they get their liberal biases validated, and conservatives more and more watch a conservative news organization where they can get their conservative views validated. As I say, it's part, I think, of the polarized media landscape these days.
And this didn't used to be an option for viewers, of course. There was just sort of the slightly liberal, or as I used to say, the New York Times gives you the full spectrum of opinion from the left to the extreme left. There was just left. Now, it's nice that we have choice, but it's sort of sad that we don't share the same input.
Right, and let me speak from personal experience on why I think it's sad. I agree with you on that. When I go on TV or write something on my website, bernardgoldberg.com, that conservatives like, I literally, and I mean literally, get love letters. You know, Bernie, you're great, we love you, keep up the good work and all that. But when I stray from the conservative plantation, I get hate mail. And I think the conclusion I've come to, John, is that while liberal orthodoxy is not an attractive thing, liberals don't have a monopoly on orthodoxy. There's also a conservative orthodoxy, and it is no prettier than liberal orthodoxy.
And in terms of liberal orthodoxy, as someone who lived even longer in it at ABC than you did at CBS, I mean, I certainly saw it when your book came out. Because your book wasn't just a bestseller, Bias. It was a huge bestseller. And it was about us, and network news. And so you would think those people at ABC would read it if just to disagree. And I would ask people about it. What'd you think about this book? And nobody that I talked to even read it.
They not only didn't read it, they'd brag about not having read it.
As people brag about, oh, I don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. I know he's disgusting, so I don't listen. So, I mean, I watch MSNBC and CNN because I want to see what other people are saying. Now, maybe I do that because it's my job, but I would like to think if I weren't in journalism, I would still do it. But most people don't.
Yeah, I think in the case that you're describing with our colleagues who are the media elites, I think the book threatened them. For years and years, they had something resembling a monopoly on the news. And if you wanted to watch world and national news on television, you had 3 places to go. That was it, ABC, NBC, and CBS. Then along comes cable, and in 1996, along comes Fox, and you can go to other places. And I think that really shook them up. I think that really threatened, well, in some sense, threatened their very existence, and in some cases, their very jobs. And that's why when Bias came out and said basically, you know what, I'm not a conservative activist. I've never been accused of even being a conservative when I was at CBS News. But the conservatives are right. They're right about this. There is a liberal bias. I was called a traitor. I was called a traitor, John. I was called a traitor by people who don't call real traitors a traitor. That's how seriously they took this. And again, I think it's because they were threatened for the first time by all the other places you can get news besides ABC, NBC, and CBS.
Still, it goes to your
newspapers.
It also goes to your point about the audience going for what they want, because if they were threatened, you'd think they'd want to read it. There's the expression, keep your enemies close. You want to know what the threat is so you can think about it, decide if it's valid, and counter it. But they wouldn't even read it. They wouldn't even look at it.
Right. A mutual friend of ours who was the president of CBS News at the time the book came out, bragged, as I say, bragged about not having read the book. I haven't read it, he said, and I have no intention of reading it. Now, here's a book about your industry. Here's a book about
his
your
company
business.
in his case.
I mean, could you imagine if a book came out about the auto industry that was critical of the auto industry, but was written by a friend of the auto industry, by somebody who worked in the auto industry for 28 years, as I did at CBS for 28 years. And then the CEOs of the auto industry said, I didn't read that book and I have no intention of reading it. Nothing you, John Stossel, says, nothing that I say matters to them. I find that fascinating. I don't find that pathetic or sad or anything. I find that fascinating that they don't take serious criticism seriously.
Well, people don't like to let it in, and that goes back to your point about we watch the newscasts where it feeds our assumptions. It's good and bad. It's good to have more choices. It's bad that we split up. Bernie, thank you very much. Coming
Thanks,
up,
John.
more about the internet. It gives us more choice, but that's eating into the ratings of traditional TV. So, are shows like this one toast, soon to be swallowed up by the internet? Glenn Beck took his TV show online, and he's here to talk about that next.